What's going on, guys, and welcome back to a new week on the channel. Today we're kicking it off with some lineup builds from the Premier League. Shout out to Too Many, who left a comment on a recent video, and he pretty much said, can you do more videos this style, so like lineup builds, just because interesting to see other people's perspective on how they build teams. Obviously, if you don't know, guys, I do a live stream every Thursday, and that's helping you guys build lineups or getting that second opinion, as well as probably building my own lineups. But yeah, so today I'm going to run through my Premier League sort of budget teams, going through each budget. So I've got four for you today, guys. Um, as you can see on screen, the first one being pretty much like the low end minimum budget, and then obviously builds all the way to the unlimited budget. This is strictly in the Premier League region. If you guys want me to do any other, like, more videos like this, and maybe in different leagues or different competitions like under 23s and things like that, then please do let me know in the comments. Yeah, without any further ado, let's crack on with the video then. Yeah, so as you can see on screen, this is my absolute, like, you're scraping the barrel. You're just starting pro, maybe you just want to kind of get to grips with the game a bit. So yeah, we've got Muric in goal. Bearing in mind, guys, goalkeepers will pretty much, starting goalkeepers are pretty much minimum going to be like £15. Bear in mind as well, guys, that you can have up to one classic card in the in-season competitions. So you could perhaps get a classic Muric instead if it's cheaper. But yeah, so with that in mind, I when I'm building teams, I tend to always go with the goalkeeper with the same club as the defender, because then if one of them hits, they're likely to both hit, if that makes sense. So yeah, if one of them gets a clean sheet, then the other one does at the same time, and that way you're spiking your score, as opposed to, like, if obviously if they do concede one, which is likely, Ipswich in the Premier League, but then they're probably going to score like similar-ish. But if they do manage to get that clean sheet, they're both going to hit a decent score at the same time, which is what you want in these squad builders, guys. So for those of you guys that are new to pro, how it sort of works is, especially with these budget teams, you want to get like sort of spiky players that can really peak at a high, and obviously the more times they do that, the more chance you have of winning stuff. So yeah, so I've gone with the Ipswich defensive stack purely based on price. Jacob Greaves, I actually think, is a really good player. I don't think he'll. I mean, depends if Ipswich stay up or not. It'll be interesting to watch this video back, like at the end of the season, and see how wrong I am with some of these things. But I genuinely think Greaves is a great defender. I reckon he'll score a couple of goals this season as well. He's been a serious threat from set pieces. And yeah, he looks lively. Honestly, I'll be very surprised if Ipswich do go down and he stays at Ipswich in the Championship. I will actually be surprised, because he's Premier League level for me, which you can't really say for some of the players in the Premier League right now. But yeah, yeah, that's just the nature of it, of course. But yeah, so moving on, we've got Elliot Anderson in midfield. Obviously, for those of you guys that know me, I'm a big advocate for Newcastle. I love Newcastle players, and obviously Anderson's the the Geordie Maradona, like a legend, of course. I think he is a great player, and I think Nottingham Forest realised that as well. And for the price they paid for him, I don't think he won't start that many, if that makes sense. He's going to start more often than he's not. And that's obviously going to be half the battle with these cheap guys, is that you want people that are going to be playing week in and week out. So obviously some of these players you might buy like backups for. Like, for example, if you've got this team, then, well, with any team that you have, you should have, like, in theory in your head, a couple of subs as a backup. I'll probably have like Ward-Prowse maybe, to back up Anderson here, just rotating them in and out. I love Ward-Prowse as well. Moving on to the captain, go with Mateta, and that's because at the moment I reckon he's priced really low because he's not started the season too well, neither of Palace. But I've captained him as well, as you notice, because again, he's that type of player that he's either going to score or not, and when he does score, you're hoping that he hits them big scores. So again, you're likely to not win that big of a reward with this team just because you're coming up against the Cities, the Liverpools, the things like that. But on a weekend where Ipswich get clean sheet and Mateta scores, you're going to be up there, which is always good. And then last but not least, I can't really say his name, but Ndai, I think that's how you say his name. He looks electric. I just watched him play against Newcastle yesterday, or the day before, and he just, yeah, it looks electric. Obviously most people might be going with McNeil from that Everton team because, yeah, but I went for a bit more of a budget pick in Ndai, and I actually think it's pretty good. I think most people who watch Premier League football or Championship will know about this guy already. But yeah, he's pretty good. He's pretty electric on that wing as well, and I love to have wingers in the side when I'm building these teams for sure. So yeah, this is my like bottom of the barrel team, if you like. And yeah, remember, guys, always have like substitutes as well. Like same with Endai, you want to have like even if you've got a minimum budget, you should have one or two players that you can sort of rotate in. So I recommend probably Ward Prowse, and yeah, maybe a swap for Endai. But yeah, moving on. So this is the sort of I aimed for £50. Obviously, it's hard to do that in Sorare because this weekend this team could be like 40 quid. Next weekend it could be 60 quid. It's prices are always changing, so I aim for roughly about £50. And yeah, so starting off with Dean Henderson again, it's same vibe. Palace, I think they just haven't started their season yet, therefore their price is going to be pretty low right now. I think Henderson's a great goalkeeper, so he'll turn it around. Along with Mitchell, like Palace play down the wings quite a lot. They use their fullbacks, obviously Munoz on the other side, but I'm pretty sure he just got injured. I think Mitchell's probably a cheap alternative. You could also put Mark Gahey if you like to have centre backs in here. But yeah, I just think Palace use the wide players very well, so it's probably good to go with a player like Mitchell because he's capable of getting them assists. But yeah, again, when I talk about subs, you might want to have a player like Gahey to sub in here, just in case Mitchell gets injured or something like that. Eze, he has again missed a couple of really big chances, but when you're doing these budget builds, you sort of have to take into account their ceiling, their potential, and obviously form is temporary. Class is permanent. I think Eze is a class player, and he's just in bad form, and it happens to everyone. You know what I mean? Haaland, he didn't score this weekend, like crazy, but yeah, you get what I mean. So then we got Evan Nilsson. Again, he's a player actually. I think again, it's going to be interested to look at this back. But he did score his first goal the other day, and I think he's going to be a really good player. I don't think that's too hard to predict either. I think people probably agree with me on that one. Yeah, there's a lot of opinions in this video, so there definitely will be shouts where you guys don't agree with me. But I think there's a few shouts you will agree with, and I think Evan Nilsson, he's a great little player. If you've watched Bournemouth play, you'll probably agree with me as well. And then last but not least, Matoma, again, another guy that he actually started the season really well, and so did Brighton, but they're slowly starting to drop off in this sort of like middle period just after the international break. But I don't have any doubts really. I think they'll pick it straight back up, and yeah, whilst Matoma's this low for sure, he is a great captain choice really, to be honest. Yeah, he works hard on the pitch and overall a great player. So yeah, with these sort of low end budgets, obviously you guys know you have to take some risks. So as a Matoma, they're going to be risks, but I don't think it's that much of a risk. So moving on to the more, you got a bit more money. You're looking at the kind of the top end ish players now. So the last two teams are sort of like you got a bit more money, you know what you're doing type thing. So this I aimed for give or take 100 quid. Obviously, bearing in mind, guys, with all of these squads, you can have a classic card. So just go for the whoever's the most expensive in season. Just try to get the classic card, maybe. But yeah, so starting off with the Newcastle defense. I actually think the defense is good so far this season, which is positive actually, because Newcastle, like, yeah, the defense obviously last season was a bit hit or miss because Pope was obviously injured. Or lots of, at one point I think the whole team was injured. You know what I mean? So yeah, with Trippier back in there, looks a bit more like although he did come off injured, but I don't think he'll be out for too long. But yeah, it just looks a bit more controlled in that defense now. I picked Shaw because he's like a pretty much a shoe in to start. Um, I mean, if again, it's about them rotations, having them sub players. I probably would have Lewis Hall and maybe Tino Livramento as well to like swap in instead of Shaw, and pretty much depending on which one you think's gonna play. Like for example, for me, I'm playing Pope and Hall this weekend because I know Hall's gonna start because he's in good form. But if Hall drops off, then they might try Livramento in the left back, or they might try Kelly in the left back, and that's where you want. If you want the full backs, then you sort of put them in instead of Shaw. If you like the centre backs, definitely Shaw. Although Dan Burn has started the season really well, but just think Shaw's the passing ability is crazy, and obviously you guys know what happens when he shoots. So yeah. Moving on to the midfield, Madison. I think he's well. You can tell doesn't really need much explanation. He's been really starting to perform this season, like again. And yeah, he's. I've been looking at his stats, like his XG, like creating and things like that is crazy good. And yeah, and the worst part about it is that I think Solanke, who is also in this team, has a few like big chances missed, which obviously it happens when you just move to a new club and stuff. You know, you get them first couple of game jitters or whatever, get them out of the way, score a couple of goals, which he already has, and then you should be flying. But yeah, I think a lot of them would have been Madison assists if he had scored them, if that makes sense. So I think Madison has room to even excel even higher, and that's why I've captained him in this team. And then obviously you got Solanke. Just think he's going to have a good season. Not really much explanation there. Tottenham look good. He looks good. Should score some goals. That's all you really want in your striker, isn't it? Or your forward player. And then last but not least, now when I was building this, I sort of had these four, and then I didn't know who to put in the fifth spot. I was thinking like you probably have these four in season, the first four, and then you put a classic card that fits your budget. I'd gone with Declan Rice, like in my head, him being a classic card, but to be honest, you can plug in your favourite player or whoever you want budget wise in the classic region. Like, you know, if you've got the facilities for a Cole Palmer, a Gavardio, whoever, De Bruyne, whatever you've got the money for, that's who you sort of slot in the end spot. I went with Rice just purely based on he's gonna play pretty much every game. He's got a few corners, obviously playing for Arsenal, good team. Yeah, so I've gone with Rice, but like you know, depends on budget. If you've got a really good classic like Palmer or something that can go in there, then no brainer really. So yeah, so that's sort of like my budget high end Prem team. And then last but not least, this is my unlimited Premier League budget team. So this is assuming I don't care about money. Okay, gone with Edison and Gvardiol. Again, you can definitely have Allison and Trent. Um, and I actually think Allison is the best goalkeeper in the Premier League. But I do think Gavardi. This is where my strategy like comes a bit undone because I think Trent is one of the best. Oh, I don't know. No, I think no. Gavardio is the best defender for me in the Premier League, and Allison is the best goalkeeper. But obviously, I don't want to play them both in the same lineup. So yeah, I think if you're going purely based on that, like with no strategy, then I would have Allison Gavardio. But again, I want them to both smash at the same time. So I've gone with Edison and Gavardio. I also don't. Yeah, Man City's a bit of a weird one because obviously the allegations, and you don't want them to die at the end of the season. But yeah, I've gone with that. Then I've gone Captain Cole Palmer. No, again, no really explanation there. It's just pretty obvious. You go with Cole Palmer. You will notice as well. I've got three forwards here, but you just buy a classic Cole Palmer or a classic Saka, and they're both midfield cards, so you can slot them in that spot. And yeah, so obviously you got Saka as well, great player. And again, you can actually swap the captain band with any of these three depending on fixtures, which is what I like about this build. Is because obviously, say for example, Chelsea are playing Southampton, you give them you give Palmer the captain band. Man City are playing Southampton, Haaland captain bad. Saka playing Southampton, captain. Pretty much whoever's playing Southampton, just captain them. You know what I mean? So yeah, Haaland again, no explanation. I just think he's going to get top goal scorer, so easy to put him in there. He doesn't always score the greatest on so rare, but it's Haaland. You know, if you got to have him really. You got to have him. And then yeah, Saka. So yeah, that's my unlimited budget Premier League team. Let me know what you guys think. If there's a player I probably missed, it. To be honest, if there's a player I missed, it's likely due to injury. Like for example, Alisson, he's injured, so I didn't really want to include him. Like De Bruyne, I think he's probably still, for me personally, best player in the Premier League. But obviously injured, and I also think he's coming to the end of his sort of like reign because he keeps picking up this like all these reoccurring injuries. So hard to include him in videos like this. And yeah, you guys know there's a million player, or not a million, but there's a lot of players in the Premier League, so I might have forgot a few. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you guys like this style of video, then let me know if you want me to do a different competition or a different league, for example. And yeah, hope you guys liked. If you took anything away from the video, please leave a sub on the channel, and I'll catch you guys in a future video. Peace.